What's up, guys? Becca Me is here today with The Foster, Season 4, Episode 7, Highs and Lows. Okay, so this episode, what stuff that I mentioned last episode will be in this episode's review. So, some stuff that I mentioned last episode will be in this episode review. So this episode basically starts off with Callie and AJ basically trying to sleep together. And they're kind of interrupted by Mike and Brandon. And Brandon basically sees and sees some stuff, and yeah. So Cal, so Callie get dressed because they know they're gonna get caught, so they basically put on stuff. So yeah. So yeah. So anyway. So anyway. So yeah. So anyway, AJ, so Mike's like, Cal, do you want to stay for dinner? But Cal's like, no, I gotta get home. So she gets home, and they're like, hey, and Callie mentions how Brandon's staying with Mike, and they're like, hey, why don't he visit us sometime in a while? So yeah, so yeah, so Joe, Jude, sorry, not Joe, I said Jude, is like, hey, and Callie's like, he speaks, and he's like, what? Who? So anyway, Mar has to be excused because Steph's like, hey, we just sit down, and he's like, she's the first computer programmer, and so Mariana late that night, Mariana decides to take his HD pills, even though they're not prescribed to her. So basically, has a headache, and yeah, so so yeah, so Gabe isn't doing his job, which is his job, which is working on the garage. He just calls Gabe, and he's like, hey, he's sick, but he'll be there tomorrow. So, but for some reason, Gabe isn't in there. So he decides to take a crack at himself. But he shoots one of the nail guns, and it puts him in ricochets or recoils into his head, and he basically falls on the ground. Mariana is so cuckoo. She keeps texting him. So then we transition. So Stephanie are trying. So let's have a Brandon and Courtney, because Brandon's so Courtney, Mason Courtney's son is playing on Brandon's keyboard, and Brandon's like, hey, don't color on sheet music, color on his coloring books. But he doesn't listen to that, so Courtney's just like, do what Brandon says. It's just like, Courtney, you could do it. You could stop him yourself, But yeah, Courtney's just like, she's like, hey, Brandon, you have to pick up her kid from preschool, and Brandon's like, hey, he was when practicing. He's like, can't A take him? And she's like, I'm trying to prove that she can raise Mason by herself without Eddie. So yeah, so basically Courtney's trying to prove. So Callie comes home to Brandon, starts talking to Mason about how the ocean's a floor, and if you fall in the water, you drown. And Callie's like, drowning? Wow, drowning? Is that a new parenting technique? And he's like, no, but I need some time practice. You could watch him. And Callie's like, no, I think you got it. So Brandon's playing some Brandon's playing some of his music when Mason just disappears and is found in the bathroom. So that's where we go from there. Which I'll talk about later. So Jesus shows up at Mariana's meet, and she's like cuckoo, and it's cuckoo because she's eating a pill, having a headache because the pills are prescribed to her, and basically is like, hey, and he's like, where have you been? He's like, I just hit my head. She's like, why don't you go help Emma with the robot? And he's like, oh, fine, I could have had a concussion. So she's like, and Mariana and Emma's, and Emma's like, she has been crazy all day. He's like, welcome to this last 16 years of his life. So she's like, what happened to you? He's like, and he starts thinking how the nail gun, how he was working on Gabe's nail gun and hit him in the head, and yeah, so he's like, do you have some aspirin? And she's like, sure. So Mariana takes some aspirin along with the pill. Like she takes one of Jesus' ADHD pills along with the aspirin, and and she's like, her head's killing her. So he's just is like, if her head doesn't, he will. He's this. But anyway, yeah. So, so Callie talks to Kyle about how Patrick Malloy is not seeing his case, and he starts thinking about how he always thought he was gonna die in prison, and it's all dark stuff. So yeah, so they eventually tell the kids that they're moving. Well, well, like, and Steph's like, hey, maybe it's time for you to sit down, and he does. It's just like so cute, but it's also so funny. But yeah, so they're like, so yeah, so yeah, so yeah. So anyway, they're like, they're, they're like, yeah. So, so he's Mariana's like, are we gonna have to live in an apartment? And they're like, so yeah, and they're like, and Jesus is like, and they're like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, and Jude's like stoned. I think he's stoned because Callie discovered he was stoned. So yeah, so basically, so yeah, so he's like, so so yeah, so yeah, so anyway, so so yeah, so so yeah, so so Steph, so Jesus is, so yeah, so and he's like, are we gonna move that? And Jesus is like, what you gonna live? You don't even live here. He's like, I lived longer than you have. And he's like, you're shacking up with your mother on like the Facebook. I'm not gonna. So yeah, so so yeah, so so yeah, so yeah, so yeah. So anyway, Mason accidentally knocks off, and Steph's like, you gotta keep, tell Courtney to keep her kid under control. And he's like, I'm not gonna tell her how to parent her kid. And she's like, someone has to. So yeah, so he's just like, so yeah, so Brian's like, don't worry, gonna leave then. And Steph's like, what? Like, so Brandon just leaves. Callie says bye bye, which the Disney Plus. I watched this on Disney Plus, and it says says Callie's name. So yeah. So anyway, so Jesus starts walking. And he's like, and they're like, where are you going? And he's like, I don't feel so good, and and they take him to a hospital. They take Jesus to a so they take Jesus to a hospital. While that's happening, Mason splashed water on Brandon's keyboard, and and Brandon and Brandon kind of gets yells at Corny about how he's feeling, about how Corny just lets him run wild, about how he's out of control, and that's why and Corny's like, it's not, she's a good mom, it's not his choice to discipline him. He's like, he lets she lets him run wild. That's why he's in bed every day. That's why he wrecks her stuff. He's out of control, and Corny's like, wow, think thanks to what you think of her as a mom. And she's like, and she tells, it makes him that's time for bed. And yeah, so Brandon after that basically just goes to the hospital and then learns that there was a in his head. And Emma reveals that that he was covering for his birthday, that he was that, that he was working on the garage. And they're like, what was he doing working on the garage? And he's like the garage, and the nail recoiled in him in the head. He's like, what is he doing? He's like, he was covering for his birth father. So yeah. So anyway, Gabe shows up, and they're basically mad at him, saying how it's his fault, how if Jesus doesn't make it, it's on Gabe. And yeah, so Gabe's like, he's sorry, and like go before the mom sees him. So yeah, so he just goes, and Jude, as I said last episode, which I forgot, which I didn't mean to mention, but I mentioned it. So Jude talks to this episode. Jude was taking some the weed. He was taking some pot last episode, and he reveals how Noah has a legal marijuana card. Callie's like Jude. And he's like, hey, he took some pot before he helps Jesus, and he took some pot before he was super stressed about his math test. He took some weed, and he got an A. So Callie basically, when Noah's coming through, Callie talks, saying how she doesn't want, it's okay for him to give, it's okay for Noah's mom to give some to Noah, but not to Jude. And basically Jude confronts Callie, and Jude confronts Callie. He's like, hey, after all the stupid things you've done, and I've never told anyone, you go tell on me because of this. And he's like, whatever, just stay out of his life for good. So basically, yeah, and yeah, so Emma's like, yeah, Jesus, I'll get back together with you because she texted Mariana. So yeah, so sorry, so Jesus, so yeah, so that wraps this episode. There was some stuff about them moving with the whole staff, the whole Sharon thing, but going to Sharon, but yeah. But that basically wraps up this story. But yeah, so Steph goes to Gabe and it's revealed that Gabe's going through depression, and about how after that list he lost some years of some stuff of his life, and stuff like, we're not gonna make you lose anymore. And basically I think that wraps up this episode. Except for that Mike reveals to Courtney Mike reveals to Courtney. Actually, Courtney reveals to Mike that Callie and Brandon slept together. Because he discovered about the hand settlement and everything, gave it to Courtney. So Mike went to talk to Courtney, and Courtney revealed that Brandon and Callie slept together, and that's why there was no reason for her to tell him to go home. So yeah, that basically wraps this episode. So like, comment, subscribe. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see you next Foster.